Now, Wall Street looks set for another day in the red on Wednesday as U.S. Treasury yields kept stepping higher, about 3%. Futures for the Dow Jones Industrial Average 0.3% lower, reaching 23,904, indicating the index is tracking a sixth day of declines. Futures for the S&P 500 index also dropped 0.3%, while those for the Nasdaq 100 index fell 0.5%. Meanwhile, the markets in Asia traded lower on Wednesday following an overnight drop in U.S. stocks as investors worried about rising interest rates and the outlook for the economy. Japan's Nikkei 225 fell 0.28%, while the Topix index declined 0.11% to 1,767.73. Shares of Takeda Pharmaceutical dropped 7.03% as the news emerged that the company increased its acquisition offer for the London-listed drug maker share to about £46 billion. We just spoke about that with Conrad. And in South Korea, the Kospi was down 0.62%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index fell 1.15%. And China's mainland markets were mixed, with the Shanghai Composite declining 0.35% and the Shenzhen Composite rising 0.26%. Australia and New Zealand markets were shut for a public holiday. Away from the markets now, troubled South African national carrier South African Airways is in discussions with banks and the National Treasury for an open credit line to stay afloat. The state-owned airline, which has not generated a profit since 2011, is regularly cited by ratings agencies as a drain on the government purse and has already received state guarantees totaling nearly 20 billion rand, which is about $1.6 billion. The chief executive, Vuyani Jarana, told Parliament that the airline needs about 5 billion rand this year to pay down debts and for operational costs. The struggling airline has not had credit facilities since August, when bank lenders pulled the plug after a debt repayment scare. The company's results for the year to March 31, 2017, which had been delayed after the company received a 10 billion rand government bailout last year, showed a deepening loss of 5.6 billion rand. And that's more than a threefold increase from the previous year's 1.5 billion rand loss. Ghana is seeking to issue up to $2.5 billion worth of Eurobonds in the coming weeks with a coupon in the 7% range. The country's finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, explains that the debt offering is equivalent to roughly 69% of its overall economic growth and coincides with government plans to leave a $918 million credit program with the International Monetary Fund by the end of the year. A majority of the debt offering will be focused on retiring higher-yielding debt, as much as $1.5 billion to $1.75 billion. Ghana's most recent Eurobond, a senior unsecured bond maturing in 2022, sold at par in September 2016, carrying a 9.25% coupon. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe is considering issuing between $2.5 and $3.5 billion in sovereign bonds after elections in July. Some of the money is expected to be used to clear arrears to foreign lenders. Deputy Finance Minister Terence Mukupwe says that export receipts from tobacco, gold and horticulture will be used to repay the bond. Mauritius banking group SBM Holdings has announced plans to inject an additional $60 million of capital into Kenya's Chase Bank. The Central Bank of Kenya has been seeking a strategic investor for Chase, which has been in receivership since April 2016 after failing to meet its financial obligations. Chase was the third medium to small-sized bank to be closed in Kenya over a period of 9 months, rattling investors in the country, where the level of gross non-performing loans reported by banks rose sharply in 2015. The central bank said last week that it and state-run Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation had signed a deal with SBM Bank Kenya Limited for SBM to take 75% of certain assets and deposits of Chase Bank as first agreed in January. Still to come on the show, the need to provide affordable and reliable power for businesses in Nigeria. Do stay with us.